It is the FTN Fast Break Podcast, episode 10, Monday, September 16th, 2024. What is going on, everybody? Welcome in, Zach Graham, a.k.a. Kawaisenberg, DFS, back again, another week closer to NBA tip-off, joined by Mike Randall at Randall Rant. Of course, we're coming off week 2 of the NFL season, I guess closing it out tonight with Monday Night Football. But as we've been saying over the last month, Mike, right, we're a week closer to the start of the NBA season, and I get a week more excited every time you and I convene here.
Yeah, especially because we just got up our operations call today, and we were talking about the charting, which obviously you're leading and doing an incredible job with, how our NBA product is going to be so robust and better than it's ever been before. Basketball across the board, NBA, college basketball, so many great things. So I am equally as excited because it's coming. October 22nd is going to be here before we know it. Today, it's September 16th. So we're almost a month away, Zach. Great stuff.
Yeah, next episode will be under a month, and also planning out kind of the preview episodes that we will have, right? Not just talking about the NBA, but from a season-long standpoint, we'll have a mock draft on today's episode over on Sleeper. Of course, when we get to that final week of the preseason, we'll start looking ahead to that opening slate DFS-wise, right? We'll talk some team over-unders in our conference previews. So things really starting to ramp up here, and I'm coming off another 2+ hour live stream on Friday. We got 3 drafts in just over 2 hours. So shout out to everybody who came through and drafted. Mike, we had like 7 or 8 spots in a 12-team underdog draft of people just in the FTN community. It was a blast.
Zach, when I watch it, it's amazing. I mean, I'm so back and forth with NFL right now, getting everything ready here. It is incredible. And I'm jealous. I'm like, he's doing it again. And he's just so much information packed into the drafts. You are the king, sir. I bow to you. You are the king.
Man, if only I could get the good fortune of our buddy UNC Chris there nailing 2 more top 2 picks just with the random number generator there. We'll leave the rest of that best ball discussion for Friday, of course, 1 p.m. Eastern. You can catch me live on the FTN Fantasy YouTube and Twitter channels. Just a couple pieces of news before we get to the mock draft here today, and we'll start on a somber note here, Mike. Because, we've talked not really at length, but just about what we knew about Andrew Wiggins, the situation with his father, right? There wasn't a ton of clarity there, but we knew it wasn't good. And now just last week, Mitchell Wiggins passes away at age 64. So again, a somber conclusion to that saga. Condolences to the Wiggins family. And obviously Andrew been going through it with his family over the last 2 seasons or so. And maybe you could speak to this more than me, because Mitchell Wiggins was a little bit before my time, right? The things that I know about him, right? I think one of the first players to catch a drug ban in league history. I think that was kind of right after Len Bias and that tragedy. But got clean, got back in the league on appeal. And after looking more into this, because when this happens, I just, kind of just instinctually go down a little bit of a basketball reference rabbit hole. Mitchell Wiggins, pretty important tip in there. Game 3 of the 86 finals against the Celtics. You talk about all the names that were in that series and Mitchell Wiggins putting his imprint on that. So anything you have to say about the late Mitchell Wiggins there? Again, just an unfortunate ending.
Yeah, Mitchell Wiggins was an integral part of that team with the Rockets. And that was the shocker, because in the 80s, it was always Lakers and Celtics. Beginning in the 80s, it was Sixers with Dr. J and Moses Malone, who said, we're going to go 4 games, sweep everyone. And they went 5-4. The only team that beat them was the Bucks, ironically, with Jack Sikma. But Mitchell Wiggins was an integral part of that team. That was the 86 team where you thought there was no chance that they were ever going to play well and do well. They knocked the Lakers out. Everyone wanted a rematch, which they ended up getting in 87 anyway. But that's really when the Celtics were at their prime. Samson, Olajuwon, and Mitchell Wiggins did a nice job for them. 10 points, explosive player, could fill it up, etc. Did have the suspension ban right after 87 through 89, came back, had essentially one more season before one final season with the Sixers. But yeah, Mitchell Wiggins, remember him well. One of those guys, integral part of the team, played well, all of that. Very true.
Yeah, and you think about the legacy of the Wiggins father-son duo there. How many father-son duos have both made and played integral parts in an NBA Finals series? So again, one more time, condolences to the Wiggins family. And then the other thing that I wanted to touch on here before the mock draft, switching leagues here, Mike. Let's talk about the W just for a few minutes, because this is the last week of the regular season, and a couple pieces of news around the W, right? Angel Reese in the last 10 days out for the rest of the season, as her Sky again battling for that final playoff spot. And then as an Aces fan, following them from San Antonio, from the old Silver Stars days, it gave me quite a scare to see Asia Wilson in a boot last week. Luckily, that was precautionary, just a one-game absence, back in action over the weekend, and I believe became the first player in the history of the W to score 1,000 points in a single season. So, crisis averted there for Aces fans.
Zach, I've been criticized a lot on social media. Now, it has changed recently, but it used to be you show me a professional player in a boot, they're in trouble. They're out for a while. And I had physical therapists come at me on social media. You don't know what you're talking about. I treated an 80-year-old woman and I put her in a boot. Nobody cares. Now, medicine has evolved where now I do see that happening more often, and I'm glad it was the case here. But you go back 5 years, Zach, you see someone in a boot, they're gone for 4 weeks. It's almost because there were other ways to treat it. Now everyone's overly precautionary. But I became like the boot guy on social media because 9 out of 10 times it was always out for at least a couple games every single time.
Yeah, I think when I first started noticing that happening was when I was coaching Division III level, but we had a guy like tweaked his ankle, and our athletic trainer came to me and was like, yeah, I think he's going to be good for the weekend, but we're going to put him in a boot until then. And so it didn't compute for me at that point. But again, good to see Asia Wilson. I know there's some NFL guys leaving their locker rooms in a boot after yesterday that we're hoping take a similar path, right? So again, just 2 more game days here, Tuesday and Thursday. 10 of the 12 teams in action on Tuesday. Of course, the entire league, 6-game slate on Thursday to close out the regular season. Just the Fever and the Wings have just 1 game left. Everybody else has 2. That's good math, right? If you know the WNBA, you know that from what I just said about the schedule. Only Dallas and LA, though. Those are the only 2 teams eliminated so far. So on Tuesday, for me, the game of the day is the battle for first round home court here between the Aces and the Storm. Those teams separated by just 1 game with 2 to go for that 4th seed. And again, you're looking for the Liberty up top need a win to clinch the 1 seed. Same with the Lynx for the 2 seed. Same with the Sun for the 3 seed. So really everybody, every team in the top 10 still playing for something. But then this is where I'll get to my stock down here in a minute, I guess, Mike. What do you make of this final week of the WNBA season?
Yeah, I love it. And it's so close, and there's so many storylines. But I have to ask you, Dave Portnoy put this crazy bet out when Caitlin Clark came in the league, saying that Indiana was going to win the WNBA title this year. I think it sounded far-fetched when he did it. He just did it to be contrarian. But I want to ask you, Zach, I think there's a non-zero chance that happens because Clark has been so hot. They're 7-3 in their last 10. You know it better than me. Is this could Portnoy hit on this? Could she carry them and lead and help lead this team to make a deep run, a la some of the Miami Heat team when they were the 8th seed making a run of the final? Is that possible?
Possible, yes. And again, it's certainly not a hot take to say it's improbable or unlikely here, right? But it looks a lot better now than it did in the middle of June when Indiana was 3-10, right? And I think some of that makes sense because this team has the Fever, right? Have been kind of the dregs of the league for the last couple of years. That's how you get multiple number 1 picks, back to back. But the youth of this team, right, coming in, especially Caitlin Clark, right? You basically come on the women's side. You come out of that March Madness and you go right to the draft. You get right into another season. So once this team kind of found their legs, so to speak, right? I mentioned 3-10. So 17-9 since then, now 1 game above 500. It's looking a lot better for old Portnoy than it was in the midsummer. So I do think they are at least a year away here. You see it, right?
Sure.
They have a back-to-back games against the Aces over the weekend, or late last week, rather. Can't quite get over the hump in both of those. So again, I think they're still a tier below where I'd put the Liberty, the Aces, maybe season, right? You're putting Connecticut and the Lynx in that mix. I think they're right below them. But it's going to be exciting, man. And again, the fact that we don't have single elimination here in the WNBA playoffs anymore, where we did in past years, going back a few years now. So I think they would have had a better chance if we shortened the postseason. Now the fact that they've got at least that best of 3 in the first round, I think probably going to keep them out. But that's a team to watch. And I don't think it's a team that anybody is excited to play at this point. But I guess shifting gears from the Fever there, right? I kind of mentioned that I wanted to break from our typical format of stock up, stock down at the end of the episode. Let me get my stock down in here real quick before we get to the mock draft. We've got 3 teams I mentioned, 1 through 10, still playing for something. Washington, Chicago, Atlanta, all tied for 8th, right? 8th and final playoff spot. All 3 of those teams, Mike, 13 and 25. I don't think we need any other evidence that 8 teams out of 12 is too many, that we have 3 teams, 12 games below 500 in the final week of the season and potentially going to get a best of 3 series. It's just, this is even worse than MLS, which allows 18 of their 29 teams at least into the wild card round. It's too much, man. We got to shorten up these playoffs. 6 out of 12 teams at least.
Yeah, especially when you're talking about multiple games now across the board. I have been on record. I'm in the minority for the NCAA tournament to open it up to everybody. I get it. It would be nauseating, but not all of those teams would play, Zach, and they could play each other. And there'd be some interest on small campuses of people having things. But when you get to the professional level, it just doesn't work. It doesn't, because people are not going to show up for their team. They think they have no chance. You know, a small school in a mid-major conference would love to get a win at home over a rival or someone else, and then maybe have 2 wins or something. That would generate interest. I agree with you in this situation. It's not going to do that. Wouldn't happen in the NBA, wouldn't happen in the NFL. You're not going to have teams that are really, Carolina Panthers last year are not packing the house if they had, quote, a playoff game. It's just not happening. So it's logical. As always, I agree with you.
Yeah, and I think, if we just shorten it to 6, well, guess what? The 7 seed is a game and a half behind the 6. So we would still have that playoff battle for the final seed here in the last week of the regular season. But we'll go ahead and move on. Of course, we'll check in on the W as the playoffs start and then continue throughout the next month and a half. Let's get to the season-long mock draft, the first of the preseason here on the podcast, Mike. We are over on Sleeper today, on the app, right? If you want to mock draft, if you want to play that Hoops product, it is just on the Sleeper app, not on desktop right now. But one of my favorite places to mock draft, and I think one thing we'll notice as we go through here, Mike, 12-team league. We use a little random number generator here. I'm at the 6 spot. You're at the 3 in this 12-teamer. And, of course, on Sleeper. I think the best way to describe this, at least to those listeners who are familiar with DraftKings, your daily fantasy lineup, your starting lineup here on Sleeper is basically a DraftKings lineup with an extra flex. You do 1 of all 5 positions, guard, forward, and 2 utilities. We've got 6 bench spots as well. So 15 rounds here. We've got 10 CPUs along with us. I'll go ahead and get this draft started. We'll talk about the picks in between ours. We'll talk about what we're thinking about with our picks here. You're on the clock at 1-3 after Luka goes 1 and Giannis goes 2. Again, the ADP for not just Sleeper, but ESPN, Fantrax, places like that, going to vary wildly compared to what we're used to a little bit with Underdog in those best ball drafts.
I wanted Giannis because of what we talked about with the Underdog draft, because of what I like some of the later centers. I do. I wanted Giannis. Oh, that's so annoying. That was my pick. I was willing to pass on. God, do I pass on Jokic? This is annoying.
Right. And that's the thing too about your season long, right? Most sites are going to have a lot of multi-position eligibility for guys, whereas when you're drafting best ball, you don't have that at all. So, right, a guy like an Anthony Davis, right, is power forward, center. Giannis, right, you're going to have multiple position eligibility. So, you get to a Jokic, center only. Center only.
I can't pass on Jokic. The other option was SGA. I couldn't pass on Jokic.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to be on brand here. You take Jokic, then Anthony Davis goes fourth, then Joel Embiid. So I'm going to go ahead and take my guy. I'll take Victor Wembanyama. Again, center, power forward eligible here on Sleeper, and I'll grab him at the 1-6. So after I take Wemby, again, SGA, Tatum, Anthony Edwards, Domantas Sabonis, Tyrese Halliburton, and Trae Young finish out round one. Then coming back the other way, LeBron, Steph Curry, Donovan Mitchell, Devin Booker, Kyrie Irving, and Scotty Barnes. So I'm back on the clock here in round two. And I've got Victor Wembanyama in tow, looking at some of the top guys in terms of ADP here. And again, ADP varies wildly. There's one guy that you and I were talking about before we hit record, and that's Paolo Banchero. This is maybe the best example in the early rounds of the differences in ADP between a site like Underdog and a site like Sleeper. Paolo Banchero, ADP of 31. So maybe he gets past you in rounds 2 and 3. That's a guy I have my eye on in these mock drafts in round 3. But I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to go with ADP here. At ADP of 15, I will take Kevin Durant, add him, pair him with Victor Wembanyama, then Brunson and Maxey off the board. Back to you here in the second round with Jokic already on the team.
He's not, Zach, going to get back to you, unfortunately, because I need a forward. That like, had I taken Giannis, then he would have. It's that simple, because I'm going to take a guard here. The forward spot is just so, I mean, I'd love to go Fox and Morant. I don't think they'll.
I guess that's one thing, right? Like, even though we have the multi-position eligibility on a lot of these guys, it is still tougher, I think, to fill those forward spots with high caliber guys compared to the guards. But you're looking at the top of ADP right now. You mentioned Fox and Lillard and Ja, right? Like, it's tough to pass up some of those names.
All right. Sorry. I'm holding up the darn show here. I'm going to. All right. I'm going to do.
All right. Ja Morant off the board. Lauri Markkanen, LaMelo Ball, De'Aaron Fox, Kawhi Leonard puts you right back on the clock. And Paolo, you love to see it, right?
I just now here's the thing. If we were actually drafting against live people, Zach, I don't know if I would have passed on Banchero, because I don't know if he would have gotten back to me, but I assume because of ADP he did. That's the only reason why I did it. Yes.
100% with you on that thought process there. So now, again, I've got Wemby, I've got Kevin Durant, and so I'm looking at some of the guards here. And again, it's now getting fairly thin at guard, but as I continue to scroll down the ADP here on Sleeper, I can go basically past where it predicts, like, my projected pick right in round 4. The guys who should be still available then, or I should say, there's 1 or 2 guards that are projected to be available then that I like just as much, if not more, than almost every guard left on the board here. So I'm actually going to take a look away from guards, see, like, if I'm looking to pick up another center or a big, right? Because Wemby has forward center eligibility. You've got Alperen Şengün, Bam Adebayo. Şengün power forward eligible. When has he ever played power? So now we're we're kind of going the opposite direction from Underdog, where that's so there's so many positional constraints, maybe a little bit too loose here on the Sleeper side of things. So I'm actually going to reach here a little bit. Again, another guy whose ADP is way out of whack from where it should be and where I think it will be, right? A month from now, when we're a week away from tip-off and, it is truly NBA draft season, everybody's getting into their NBA season-long drafts, I think this guy's going to be a lot higher. Give me Zion Williamson here in the 3rd round. And Mike, you talk about ridiculous eligibility. Power forward, center, and small forward for Zion. So we'll put Zion on the team. And of course, the CPU going to take off here through the rest of round 3 and the beginning of round 4. But feel pretty good about Zion, again, at 3-6 there, adding him to Wemby and KD. And after that pick, we're back to me here. But to finish out the 3rd round, Vooch, Şengün, Fred VanVleet, DeMar DeRozan, Bam Adebayo, and Karl Anthony Towns finished up the 3rd round. Then to start the 4th, Desmond Bane, Jamal Murray, Julius Randle, Jimmy Butler, James Harden, and Paul George. So now we're coming back around here in the fourth, and this worked out perfect for me, Mike, because I will scoop up the point shooting guard and small forward eligible Cade Cunningham with my fourth round pick. Then Porzingis, Miles Bridges, and you are back on the clock with Jokic, Ja, and Paolo on your roster.
Zach, do you think there's a chance that Julius Randle does not start? You see that article on that? He says, I don't care what my role is. I'm just curious because that is an early pick for Julius Randle in round 4 to me.
Yeah.
And I think, I mean, I guess they need a big, so I get it, but I don't know. His playing time could be affected. How about that?
Yeah, and I think that's totally fair because I guess that's maybe one of the guys, him and Jalen Brunson, who until this last week, I hadn't really thought about their playing time being diminished. And I don't think I need to bring up Brunson's name in that. It's really just Brunson's going to be out there, right? But we've talked about the maybe diminished roles from a Dante DiVincenzo, a Josh Hart, right? These guys that we were used to throughout the postseason playing 40-ish, sometimes all 48 minutes for a guy like Josh Hart. Now that this team has traded for Mikal Bridges, this team has gotten healthier. Julius Randle, maybe that is a little bit of a worry. And again, when you're in this season-long format, you don't have those positional constraints like you do on Underdog, where Randle's forward-only eligibility, or wing, rather, there is bolstering that ADP. I don't think I'm super concerned about it. Ultimately, long-winded way to get back to the question you asked. Are you concerned at this point? I guess, maybe round 4 is still, I think, a decent value as long as he wasn't limited.
Yeah, my concern is his playing time because he's a guy who has to get in the flow, has to get in the feel. When he's in foul trouble, his stat lines are abysmal when he's in and out, more so than anyone else because I feel like he's mentally not engaged. He's someone that I'm fading at his ADP right now. I don't want to have any part of him. With my picks, I ended up going with – I love seeing Holmgren with the power forward eligibility, and I went Siakam. So 3 forwards in a row. Banchero, Siakam, Holmgren. I punted guard, which I didn't do last time, and I think it's very deep. You take your guy, Josh Giddey, which makes total sense. So back-to-back small forward shooting guard there with Cade and Josh Giddey.
Yeah, man. And you mentioned you taking Siakam and Chet Holmgren in rounds 4 and 5. Siakam, second-round guy in best ball drafts. Chet right on the 2-3 turn in best ball drafts. And you mentioned, right, Chet Holmgren, also power forward eligible there. So again, just further highlighting some of the values you can get in terms of ADP. Again, I think, Mike, if we jump into one of these mock drafts with 10 of our friends and we have humans behind these picks, we're probably not getting some of these elite values like Chet Holmgren in the 5th. But again, it's just something to keep in mind as you go into your season-long draft. So I'm back on the clock. You mentioned I did take Josh Giddey there in round 5. After that, Jaren Jackson, Jalen Johnson, Terry Rozier, Anthony Simons, OG Anunoby, and Evan Mobley. Then to start the 6th round, Jordan Poole, Brendan Ingram, Tyler Hero, Darius Garland, and Nick Claxton. And then Zach LaVine. Now I'm back on the clock again. My team so far, Cade Cunningham, Josh Giddey, Kevin Durant, Victor Wembanyama, and Zion Williamson. So again, with the flexibility of these rosters, I'm really just looking for best player available. And so checking out all of the positions here. I mean, Franz Wagner is still available to me in round 6. J-Dub, right? Jalen Williams still available to me here in round 6. Mikal Bridges, Brandon Miller. There are a ton of guys, Emmanuel Quickly, a ton of guys that I'm just not used to seeing available to me in a 6th round of a draft here, just because I've been banging out the underdog drafts for the last month plus. So I'm going to go ahead, grab Franz Wagner here since you took Paolo earlier on. So we each get a share of those Orlando Magic.
Yeah, I need guards for sure. So I'm looking now. J-Dub is there. Derek White is there. I like both of them. Mikal Bridges, of course. I always want to see best available. Yeah, I know I like Brandon Miller, but I'm so heavy forward right now. I can't go there. I need guards. So I'm going to go. Would Derek White make it back to me? Well, we're going to find out. There goes J-Dub. No, of course not. He goes with the next pick.
right? So
There goes
Derek White,
Brandon Miller just to stick it to me.
Derek White, Kobe White, Yusuf Nurkic, Brandon Miller. So after Mike took J-Dub, back up on the clock here in round 7.
Yeah, I'm worried about Bridges on the Knicks. We have to remember that, first of all, it's going to be a different system. It's going to be slower. He's not going to be scoring as much.
I mean, it was really just after the KD trade, right? We saw at the end of the season, or when he was traded away, rather, that's when we saw that McCall Bridges scoring 25 points a game. And there was a lot of hype coming into last year. People taking him in round 2 of best ball drafts before last season. And then he comes back down to earth a little bit last year. And now he's, like you said, on a team with more mouths to feed and a little bit of a slower pace.
I'm just not a Bradley Beal guy. That's the problem.
Beal, Cam Thomas there, right? If you're talking about so I see you go McCall Bridges. Again, in the 7th round, what you don't have to worry about there is the minutes.
Right. Well, that was it. We know Tibbs is going to do what Tibbs does. So I'll just take the minutes and we'll get the steals, the blocks, the assists. I'll take all that and hope he can get, about 15 points a game, maybe somewhere in there.
So I'm back up on the clock here. And again, still really with both utility spots still open, still looking for best player available. So I'm looking to a guy like Emmanuel Quickly in a spot like this. I'm starting to consider my guy, Chris Middleton, right? We're getting to that point where I start to have eyes for him. But Cam Thomas, Bradley Beal, like you mentioned, again, no real slam dunks in here, but some guys that do have upside. I'm going to go past Thomas, past Beal, and I am going to take IQ. I'm going to get a little piece of that Toronto Raptors team and send the CPU off to finish round 7 and start round 8. So coming back around to my 8th round pick, I've got Cade, Giddey, Franz, KD, Wemby, Zion, and IQ. I still have, by my roster, a center spot and a utility, but I have 2 center eligible guys and plenty of flexibility. So again, I've got 2 spots left to fill out my starting lineup, and I can go with, what did that just say? Sorry, Bryce. Again, we're breaking in with NFL news here in the middle of our NBA mock draft, Mike, but Bryce Young benched for week 3.
Wow.
Yeah, Andy Dalton going to start.
Andy Dalton. Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's again, so it wasn't nothing that I'm reacting to there.
That's a big one.
Interesting to follow there. But again, getting back to what I was saying about, I'm in round 8 here, and typically in those underdog drafts, and maybe once ADPs tighten up a little bit in season-long drafts, you're looking at, okay, I need a guard, I need a forward, I need a center. But with the MPE here, I can, again, go out and get who I think is the best player available. And I'm just going to go ahead. I don't need to talk about it anymore. If you've been listening to the pod, if you've been tuning into the best ball drafts, you know why I'm taking Chris Middleton here in round 8. So I send it to you, sir, for your 8th round pick.
It was Drew. It was Drew or Middleton. And listen, Zach, I support you going for your guy. My guy in underdog best ball NFL drafts was J.K. Dobbins.
Yeah.
Every time
I
have 52% exposure to him, and I know that is not mathematically the right move out of 150 lineups. So get your guy, and the more you talk about him, the more I like him, and the more that I'm going to get him in drafts as well, because it makes perfect sense. I'm on the clock now. It took Drew Holiday. So I feel good about my peripherals with steals and blocks with the way this team is being built with Holmgren, Jokic, Bridges, Holiday. I don't have a shooting guard starter. Although I think Drew has shooting guard eligibility. I thought he had shooting guard eligibility. It looked like he did. Maybe I could be wrong about that.
He does. I'm looking at his player card there.
Yeah, got it. Let's see. We've talked about Scoot. Jaden Ivey's fine. Yeah, Keegan Murray's just okay. Sexton is there. Bogdanovich. Oh, I'm going down because we talked about Draymond is there as well.
When you start to scroll on this app, you start to see guys where you're like, well, I would love to take that guy, but clearly I don't need to take him here. you can just continue to kind of uncover these late round gems. I've got a couple in mind that I'm hoping you don't take here.
I'll take Ivy.
All right, so he was one guy in my queue there. I see Amin Thompson here.
Yeah.
Again, point and shooting guard eligible, ADP of 99 right now.
Sure.
That's going to feel pretty good to get on the team. But the guy I wanted that I had at the top of my queue actually went one pick after you with Jonathan Kuminga here in the 9th round. And again, just looking for a guy that has that type of, upside to really beat that ADP. To me, Kuminga makes a lot of sense. So it is going to be Amin Thompson for me, but I'll praise the CPU team drafting out of the 4 slot there for Kuminga in the 9th.
Yes.
So we continue here. ADP or the CPU rather goes Keegan Murray, Sexton, Bojan Bogdanovic, and Scoot Henderson, another guy who was in consideration for me in the 9th round. So was Aaron Gordon, who closes out the 9th. Levert, Trey Murphy, Dante DiVincenzo, Jakob Poeltl, Klay Thompson, and Brandon Pajinski, which is another, again, high upside pick, I think, here in the late rounds. And now we are just filling out our 6 bench spots here. So again, I'm doing a little bit of scrolling to get to some upside picks that I'm a fan of. And here's going to be one. This carrying over from my love in the best ball streets. Give me Trace Jackson Davis, small, power forward, and center eligible. I don't know when Trace Jackson Davis has played small forward in the NBA, but he might slot in on my fantasy team.
Okay.
Pair of 4 Warriors in a row, because Pajemski went before me. I take Jackson Davis, then the computers take Buddy Hield and Draymond Green before Mike's pick.
Yeah, this one's going to hurt you. I'm sorry.
Oh, no. Yeah, Chris Paul. I was also eyeing him.
Yeah.
I can only take so many of my my best ball guys in this season long, right?
It's not a draft unless I take Jalen Suggs. Zach,
I was going to say.
I would Paul and Suggs back to back. So, yeah, even though no guards for me, except for Ja, 1 guard through the first 5 picks, I've now bounced back with Holiday, Ivy, Paul, and Jalen Suggs.
Yeah, I like it. And then again, staying on brand, like you said, when you have a stand on a guy, stand on it, right? And I know there's a little extra pep in your step. I didn't quite know what it was, but now I figured it out. It's J.K. Dobbins through 2 weeks. Got you buzzing here, Mike.
The flip, Zach. I loved it. And by the way, kill the drama and just select Brooke Lopez, will you please? Okay.
I literally just flipped over to the center page. I'm thinking about Brooke. Jonas Valanciunas is right there as well.
You may not take him this pick, but I'll bet my mortgage he's not coming back to me on the next round, so it's not going to matter.
Yeah, we'll see. I think I'm going to – here's what I'm going to do, actually, just to highlight where this guy is going in terms of his sleeper ADP. I'm not a fan of this guy where he's going in best ball drafts, but ADP of 211 on sleeper right now is Zach Edey. So I will just go ahead and put him on the team I could point him out there. And again, should be the starting center for the Grizzlies based on what everybody expects there. And I think, again, to varying degrees of success, we think, I'm a little down on that, but Zach Edey in the 11th round. And now I'm back on the clock here. And, somebody took Brooke Lopez from me, Mike. For the content, I sacrificed my guy there. So we'll go back looking at some forwards here. And again, you talk about the multi-position eligibility of some of these players, because when you look at the top 4 forward eligible players, you just get a smorgasbord of guys, their physical stature. Spencer Dinwiddie is next to Walker Kessler here, who's next to Jarris Walker, who's next to Kevin Huerter. All of these guys forward eligible on sleeper. So again, drafting for the best players available. And again, you try to tailor that to your league settings. If you're in a head-to-head categories league, you're going to draft a little bit different than you would for a head-to-head fantasy points league, things of that nature. But I'm going to stay near the top of the forwards available here. And you know what? Actually, I'm going to scroll down one big scroll here, because I see Bojan Bogdanovic already went off the board, but I will take Bogdan Bogdanovic, ADP of 160 here. Again, that's too low for a guy who's now projected to start next to Trae Young.
This is an easy one. I need bigs now because I've ignored bigs since round 5 with Chet
Mhm.
Holmgren. Send Washington back. Send me PJ. Send me PJ. Send me
Do it.
PJ. Ah, there it is.
Got it. Nice.
So
So
Zubac and
Zubac.
PJ Washington. Yes. Yep.
Yeah, I love to see it. And the picks in between that, Gary Trent, Jarris Walker, Walker Kessler, Sadiq Bey is an interesting IR candidate, right? You put him on, throw him on your IR spot for the first couple months, and then could get big minutes down the stretch with a tanking Washington team. So I'm back on the clock here. Like you, I think I still want to continue to bolster my front court. You've got guys like Derek Lively still available again, and Derek Lively is behind the ADP of guys like Bol and Kevon Looney, right? What are we doing here? Like, I think that's just going to be my pick, plain and simple. Give me Derek Lively in round, what is this, 13? Yeah, we'll take that. So coming back around for my penultimate pick here. Now we will go to the backcourt. Just got a couple bigs, couple forward eligible players. Taking a look at some guards. Keontae George stands out to me here right off the top. But as I think you need to do every time you're on the clock here on Sleeper or ESPN or wherever you're drafting, maybe you're drafting on Yahoo, continue to scroll, right? There are guys available like a Stephon Castle, a Jaime Jaquez still down there at ADP of 196, right? So you've got some names down there. I'm going to go ahead and draft Keontae George, but just trying to, cross my T's, dot my I's, and I see one of your names went off the board there to Team 5.
Pour one out for my Q with Caleb Martin. So we'll go pivot to Lou Dort coming back around last pick. Let's see where I'm at right now. All the positions are filled, have good depth across the board. Where am I going here? I did this last time and we talked about keeping an eye on later in the year in case some players get more time. Donovan Clingan.
There you go.
Yeah.
Donovan Clingan. I like it. And again, for my last pick, you don't want to take too much time here for a meaningless mock draft that we're not actually going to play out the season. So I'll grab Jaime Jaquez, shooting guard, small forward eligible. But again, if this were a draft of consequence, I would be scrolling for a couple minutes probably and weighing some of my options. So the draft has ended. Again, this was a 12-team draft over on Sleeper. Mike was in the 3 spot. I was in the 6, so my team ended up Cade Cunningham, Josh Giddey, Franz Wagner, Kevin Durant, Victor Wembanyama, Zion Williamson, Trace Jackson Davis, Emmanuel Quickley, Chris Middleton, Amin Thompson, Zach Edey, Bogdan Bogdanovic, Derek Lively, Keontae George, and Jaime Jaquez Jr. I feel pretty good. I think that is a strong roster that I think is probably a little bit stronger than I'd be able to pull off if we had 10 other humans drafting with us. But not, I don't think it's too far off of what you could build in a situation like that. Again, there is a ton of value over here on Sleeper. How do you feel about your team? Your squad?
I don't think that I would be able in a regular draft to get away with going for as many positions consecutively as I did. Boncaro, Siakam, Holmgren. I think I would have lost Jay Will, possibly Holiday. So I think the one thing that's different is I need to make sure that in the regular drafts, you can estimate when players are coming back. And I don't think that would have happened here. Boy, that was an interesting point because if Jokic wasn't there, the dominoes fall. If Jokic isn't there and Giannis is, I take Giannis. I probably double tap guard and get Fox maybe and Morant, and then everything changes. But yeah, happy with my team. I like the players on the bench to give me a lot of the peripheral stats with the scoring coming from the top players because I think that's easier to fit in. And, a player like a PJ Washington, even Suggs, can have those big blow-up games on occasion if I need them to. So, yeah, happy with team.
Well, I would say at least through those first 5 rounds, I slightly prefer your team because, again, we talked about it at the time in the middle of that draft. Siakam at 4'10 and Chet at 5'3. Again, like you said, maybe you don't get that in a real draft, but just looking at the top end of our teams, super strong start there for you out of the three. So anything else for you on this draft? Again, we'll continue with the best ball drafts on Fridays. We'll continue to talk ADP here. We'll have some season-long content coming out on the site again, closer to the season, looking for waiver wire articles this year as well. Maybe we'll start up the listener league again this year for the podcast, Mike.
Sure. What I would say, Zach, is I know this is computer picking. You cannot start 3 guards. You just can't. If you take 2 guards like Team 10 did, Halliburton and Curry, you got to get Bam, because you need to have some sort of, you're going to have to piece together the forwards and things like that with OG, et cetera. Maybe Brandon Powell, Brandon Ingram. But yeah, I think you can't go 3 guards. That's the one thing that, and I know it's a computer that's doing it, so it doesn't really matter. But.
Right. But you never know. Hey, man, I mean, we've seen some crazy starts in some of those best ball drafts too, right? Which are, again, all for money. So, again, just want to close out episode 10 here today. I did a little stock down earlier. I've got a little stock up to close us out here on a positive note, Mike. And mine this week is DeMar DeRozan. He's got a new book coming out called Above the Noise, My Story of Chasing Calm. And of course, DeMar DeRozan, for many years, right, has kind of been at the forefront of the mental health awareness movement, right, especially for men in this country and globally. And it kind of all started, right, with a tweet from DeMar back in his Toronto Raptors days, and has really since, I think, kind of, again, pushed that topic to the forefront. It has helped others, even professional athletes, right? You think of Kevin Love, who credited DeMar DeRozan for giving him the energy, the courage to kind of speak up. And so again, I have a lot of respect for guys like that with the platforms that these athletes have, to again, like, try to take down some of the walls around, right, the stigma around things like this in our society. And again, it also helps too that DeMar, on the podcast circuit that he's been on promoting this book, has also had some good things, continues to say good things about my favorite team down there in San Antonio in his time there with Coach Popovich. But again, stock up DeMar DeRozan. Just another reason, because it's been, in my book, DeMar DeRozan stock has always been high.
Totally agree. And it's so critical. Mindset, Zach, is so important. I'm telling my kids this. Your mindset going into something can overcome or can thwart your efforts in whatever you choose to do. Mental health awareness, it should be the norm. It should be talked about more often. And I commend them for bringing it forward, because it is so critical.
Anything else for you, Mike, before we shut it down here on episode 10?
Good to go. You broke NFL news. We did a draft. I mean, it's a full episode.
Yeah, I can't wait to tune in to the football podcast tomorrow and hear the takeaways from this Bryce Young benching, because that is, fantasy football or not, that's big news. And I cannot believe here in the year of our Lord 2024, Andy Dalton starting an NFL game. Mike, my fiance is from a TCU family. They're going to be elated to hear that Andy Dalton, Big Red, back out.
He's back, baby. The Red Rocket. Red Rifle is back and ready to go.
Yeah, yep. We could talk Matt Bonner. I could talk Matt Bonner all day, the Red Rocket. Wow. All right, everybody. We appreciate you tuning in, sticking with us here on episode 10 of FTN Fast Break. Of course, we'll be back next Monday with another episode. You can join me on Friday, FTN Fantasy YouTube and Twitter pages, live underdog best ball drafts. Come through, draft with us. It's a blast. You don't have to draft this. You can hang out, get in the chat, ask questions, see what some of the guys who are, 100 plus drafts in, what they're doing, how they're treating some of these tough picks, roster builds, and the like. Wednesday for FTN Fantasy subscribers, my first Best Ball Diary article, that series coming back. So we'll have 3 of those between Wednesday and the start of the regular season, analyzing the playoff schedule there on Underdog, some ADP movement and the like. And of course, you can subscribe, tune into all of the FTN Fantasy channels for all of our NFL content, MLB coming to a close, WNBA, we talk about that in the Discord, of course, NBA preseason. It's a great time to be a sports fan. It's a great time to be here at FTN. Can't forget college football, college basketball starting up. We'll talk college hoops on the pod. It's a whirlwind, Mike. Can't wait to see everybody here next week. Enjoy your week, everybody. And we'll see you on Monday. Till then, he's Mike. I'm Zach. Goodbye.